Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Rock Talk with the DocRocker. I am Jeff Bonomo, joined once again with the DocRocker, and somebody else is in our Zoomiverse. Who is it today?
Yeah, so we have a really special episode planned for all of you folks who have been following our channel so far. We have a special guest, a close friend of mine from high school, Mr. Brian Gumbeta.
How are you guys?
Yeah, so Brian's here. Brian's gonna join us, and we're just gonna basically take a whole episode and we're gonna gush about the band Tool, because at least Brian.
The reason why we're doing this is because you recently discovered Tool, correct? Like
I guess I could give you like my kind of background with Tool, because that's kind of what inspired us doing the episode in the first place. Of like, all right, well, let's do a Tool episode. So like, I've always liked Tool. I've like known them probably since the Lateralis days back in the mid 2000s, like when Schism came out, that was like their big thing. And I remember thinking that was like a really cool song. My older brother was a bass player and he picked that song up and he played it all the time. And I heard that cool little asymmetrical thing. And it was like one of my first tastes of progressive metal. And it was this cool thing. And I always thought it was really neat, but I never like fully immersed myself in the band and got into them. It's one of those, it's kind of like a Guns N' Roses thing for me, where like I've known about them for a long time, but it took way too late in my life to like actually sit down and listen to them. So I finally did that with Tool, and for the last like month, I've been just listening to nothing but Tool for like every single day, just going through their entire discography, just doing entire albums, like cover to cover, over and over and over and over again, and absolutely loving all of it. So we figured let's get someone who knows a little bit more about the band than I do, because Jeff, you're not too big of a Tool fan, right? You know, you like them, they're cool, but you don't really know too much about them. So
yeah,
we're gonna talk about them.
I'm not like an Iron Maiden, like how I love Iron Maiden. It's not like how I love Tool. You know, I do love Tool. I like Tool. I appreciate Tool. I think Maynard James Keenan is he's amazing. He's an amazing weird man.
He's an artist.
Danny Carey, fantastic drummer. Like he's just one of the best. If you're watching our show and you know who Tool is probably, but if you don't, a little history. I'm gonna send it out to the guys here to talk more about Tool, because I like them, and when I listen to them, I tend to listen to them a lot. Like today, I listened to Lateralis. I don't know why they have. I hate the names of these albums.
Lateralis. That's what I like about them. I like all the like kind of Latin stuff. You know, Fear Inoculum. Like epic sounding cathedral things. I don't know.
So I listened to that for the first time today in a long time, and it blew me away just as much as it did the first time. Actually, probably more, because I know more about the album now. But we'll get into that a little bit later.
Yeah.
Here's a little history of Tool. Briefly, Tool's an American rock band from Los Angeles. They were formed back in 1990. The group's lineup hasn't really changed, except for a bass player. It's the only person they changed out in 1995. They got a new bass player. But other than that, it's been the same four guys since 1995. The band's released, I think, 5 studio albums, 1 EP, 1 box set. I was introduced to them with Undertow. That was more of like an alt metal,
it's a great
like an alternative metal kind of sound. Like they were not really as proggy on that album, but from then on, they got more and more progressive, more and more experimental. But I still gotta say, they're a metal band. I don't care what anyone says. They're a strange metal band, but there's no denying they're a metal band. They are a metal band.
Primus is a weird band. I also consider like Primus a metal band, and they're certainly obscure.
Yeah.
You know, it's like there are different shades. But for me, as far as like the psychedelic music, for me it was kind of when they switched to Volcano Records. I think it was Enema, or was it the Salaval EP before Lateralis. I think Lateralis and Salaval were like really the tipping point between the angry, young, like angsty music that I really fell in love with right off the bat with Undertow, and especially with Opiate. Like Opiate was my go-to album for a long time, just because of all the anger that he belts and he screams. So I don't know. I personally, I think that Lateralis On is the essential Tool, but for me personally, I like the early stuff, the hard, angry, and Maynard was an angry kid, so I really
Yeah.
enjoyed that side of it. He was an angry,
That's
angry
really
dude.
interesting because I have not
Hi, baby.
heard any early Tool until very recently. Like for me, it was like Lateralis when they like hit the. I don't want to say mainstream because they're definitely by no means a mainstream.
They are, but they aren't. They ride on this.
But like
weird
some other
cusp.
stuff surfaced to the mainstream. I want to say around the Lateralis days. Like I know Schism's
Yes.
the big thing.
Sober, Schism, and
The
Lateralis
Pot
are probably the
from
Pot, of
like
course, the
10,000
Pot.
Days.
Yeah.
You know, like so some of those like it's always like, oh, these songs are really cool and this band sounds really awesome and all their stuff sounds like this and they're really, really cool. And it's like, why the hell did I never ever like ever listen to them, you know? So like it's one of those things. And then of course, you know, how many years was it, like 19 years or something?
I think it was 13 years between
13
2006 between 10,000 Days was 2006 to
and then Fear Inoculum was
2019.
2019.
Dude,
Right.
13 years.
And
They had a lot. I mean, Maynard was pumping out music with side
yeah.
projects.
yeah, doing like
And
a
wine.
perfect circle and all
He's
that
got
kind
like
of
a
stuff.
pizza truck and stuff. Like
Yeah,
he's
you
got all
gotta be a
sorts of
strange
stuff.
guy.
You know, don't forget he also makes wine too. I mean, he spent a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of
Yeah,
time
so
making
he's
wine.
definitely a very interesting
Speaking
and
of which,
eccentric individual.
Do you know
Yeah,
how
go
to
ahead.
say? Do you know how to say his wine name? Is it Caduceus? Caduceus?
I don't. Yeah,
Until
sure.
now, I had no idea that he
Yeah,
made
yeah, it
wine,
was-
so
yeah.
I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, there's now I want to mention something that you said, like he was very angry. He was an angry young
Oh, yeah.
man, and I have to agree with that, especially when you read like he also had a sense of humor though, like
Oh, yeah.
the lyrics to like Anima.
Anima,
when he
yeah.
Anima.
talk-
Is-
yeah, when he
I think
talks
how you
about-
pronounce it. I think you say it anima. I'm pretty
I
sure.
don't
I
care.
always
Whatever.
correct
Correct us
We're
if
gonna
we're wrong,
pronounce
like in the
stuff
comments.
wrong.
Fleshing it out.
Tell us how to pronounce it.
We're gonna pronounce everything like wrong tonight. So because they make up words. So
Come to
but,
That's true.
But I'm saying like the lyrics on that song it's angry, but it's also like
Oh, it's super
kinda-
satirical.
yeah. I sure could use a vacation from this bullshit 3-wing slideshow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's just talking about his all the bullshit of your
Of LA.
yeah,
And-
it's
Yeah.
And
Just
the
Kind of
the
glamour
life
scene
life.
in the 80s probably. It's probably a response to that.
oh yeah,
it's pretty much like if you read the lyrics to it, like if you don't know the lyrics, first of all, the song is great by itself. It sounds very angry, but when you read the lyrics, you're like, they're just kind of poking fun at this LA scene, all the fake people that they run into probably constantly, especially back then.
yes,
and they're
men and
just like,
sycophants and yeah,
and there's a lot of stuff like that, a lot of satirical stuff in the lyrics throughout all the songs, which is great. And the songs are always, even if it's not like right there in your face lyrically, there's always about something. You may have to, sometimes you gotta dig pretty deep for that. And that's another thing. I as a drummer, I like the tribal beats that Danny Carey always does. But I'm also big and Danton isn't really big on this, but I'm big on lyrics and lyricism and metaphor. When you dig deep into these songs, there's always these different layers, and that's what amazes me about Tool more than the music. Because sometimes the music for me it's very dark.
it's
very
repetitive as well.
Yeah.
Right.
It was very repetitive,
On the surface, it's like really dull and dry and repetitive and boring. And I can
but
see
once you break down a little,
it's
bit
kind of a
more-
love-hate thing where like you either totally love Tool and you're like super into it, or you're like, oh, these guys are super lame and boring and repetitive. I've not really met much of an in-between where like, oh yeah, Tool's okay. It's either like, oh my god, Tool, or it's like, Tool.
I'm the in-between sometimes, I think, because sometimes I'm in the mood
Yeah.
for them though. But like I said, when you look into these songs musically, they're really intelligently written. I mean, like
Oh
when,
yeah,
I'll just get out of the way right now. Lateralis.
Yeah,
It's
that's the best
based on
example of the title
Fibonacci
track.
sequence. Yeah, let's see the syllables in the first verse count 1 1 2 3 5 8 5 3
oh
13.
yeah, it follows the
8,
Fibonacci
5,
sequence.
Yeah,
it
the Fibonacci
follows
sequence. There's a really
the
cool
golden
YouTube video that
circle.
lays that out. Somebody posted that. I forget who exactly it was. Was it Dan who
Me.
posted that on?
It was me.
Oh, was it you? Oh, Oh, well, there you go. Thank you, Jeff. There's a really cool YouTube video. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, there's a really cool YouTube video that explains how the overall song structure and like so many different elements of the musical form for the song, the title track Lateralis off of that album follow this particular mathematical
The
sequence.
Fibonacci sequence.
Yeah, the Fibonacci sequence, how it's like it's all multiplicative, right? Like 1 and then 3 and then 5, and like there's like the amount of syllables that Maynard has on each of his lyrical lines, and how the whole thing kind of like talks about this kind of like coming into being sort of thing. Like it's really, really smartly written stuff, and it's really deep. And the more you listen to it,
transitional piece too.
the more stuff
it's
you hear.
super elaborate.
It's definitely one of those where, like, on repeat listens, you hear so many more things. It's like an onion. You know, you start to pick apart
Layers.
the onion. You get all the layers every time.
like an ogre.
And by like the fifth or sixth listen
Shrek.
through, you're like, it's just totally mind blowing, right?
Now, one of the things Jeff mentioned, Danton's not really into the lyrical side, but for me, Lateralis was the song that got me into Tool. That was that for me was, well, I liked the pot too. Like I heard the pot on the radio in high school and I was just like, this is cool. But I did not like Schism and I did not like Sober. I was just like, not into it. And still, I'm still not a huge fan of Sober. It's just too mainstream for me. But Lateralis lyrically blew me away because, I mean, first off, like you said, the syllables, how they line up mathematically, but then the words he chooses, how he's swinging on the spiral of our divinity, and he's using like all these beautiful words,
really provocative.
But he walks this fine line where he's very illustrative and he's very elegant, but he's not pretentious. I feel like a lot of people, when they try and write in that style,
kind of stuff, you
can't.
It's really easy to get pretentious.
Yeah, and to sound like you're just this wannabe Shakespeare writing poetry.
I'm smarter than you, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like
you don't really get that with Tool. As smart as it is, it doesn't come off as.
I find that a lot in the fans, though. I find a lot of like Tool fans.
The fans could be like, in the chorus of that song, he also says, you know, if you're overthinking, over analyzing, it's going to separate your body from your mind. You know, so it's kind of poking fun again at people that are over analyzing what they're doing. At least that's how I get it. One thing I do want to mention, another drummer thing that I have in my notes is the time signatures in that chorus change from 9/8 to 8/8 to 7/8.
To 7/8, yeah.
And the original name of the song was 987. So
really, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was the kind of draft of it. Yeah,
it's also part of the Fibonacci sequence too. So it actually kind of it ended up being kind of neat, and that was like nothing. That wasn't planned. That 987 was like part of the Fibonacci sequence. It is.
That was just kind of an accidental becoming. Wow, that's wild.
Yeah.
They're genius, really. They really are.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
Yeah.
Everywhere from like the heavy bass to the I like the repetitive riffage, but like everything, the heavy bass is just crazy. Everything they do is magic. Yeah, except for their filler tracks. I've got to say, I do not like Tool's filler tracks.
Like the crying babies and shit on like Anima.
Like the electricity.
Some of that stuff. I'm not a bit. Yeah, I tend to skip a lot of there's some kind of like chocolate chip trip or something on the new album. I'm like, all right, that's kind of lame. Kind of it's gonna skip that every time.
The only thing I liked about Chocolate Chip Trip is it's kind of like
it's weird.
For me, it was just like a focalizing on Danny Carey. It's just like you get these weird sounds and then you get him just hitting the drums. And it was cool. Like it was just kind of
it's cool the first
but it was nothing.
The third time I'm like, I'm kind of done with this.
Yeah, it's nothing crazy.
Nothing too impressive.
And the name throws me off too, like Chocolate Chip Trip.
See, like silly names is kind of a cool thing for me. Like I like stuff like that because I'm like a big Periphery fan. So like they have all kinds of like all their riffs have like these really silly, goofy, like nonsense names. So I'm kind of okay with that. And it was kind of funny, like for me, when I really started digging into them this past month, and like, you know, so naturally I like dug into the wiki and just kind of looked at some basic stuff, like what's the band about, where are they from, you know, that kind of thing. Let me get a little more about just what the surface level of the music is. And the whole idea of the name itself, Tool, it's literally a dick, right? The whole thing. Yeah, it's kind of like this musical, just kind of like shank on the whole scene.
Yes. Let's see if I
like
can pull up a picture real quick.
Like, and their first logo is like that. It's like a big satire of like the whole like let's try to do something like real deep and meaningful, but like
I don't
no,
know
it's
how
just
well
a
it'll
giant
show
dick.
up on this.
Yeah, no, there it is.
There
Yeah.
it is. This.
So like the whole silliness of that aspect and how much it like really like you could tell these are guys that like don't take themselves too seriously, but at the same time they kind of do in a way that like their music is really deep and profound and provocative. But at the same time, it's also like really silly and dumb and just ridiculous.
I feel like they're almost like Zappa in the way that they know that they're good enough and they can afford to be. It's like they won't lose anything if they are silly because they know their fan base and they know their own skill.
And they know their musical merits are worth their weight in whatever they try to do.
Hi, Marissa.
Hi, little baby. Hi.
Hi, puppy.
Just want to say hi.
Yeah, she wants to say hello. So is this little
Hello.
little demon.
I like that chonky dog.
She's a little chonker. Fun. But yeah, I think all of that is exactly precisely why it took me as long as it did to like really get into them. Because as Jeff said, like I never really take much stock in the lyrical content of any artist. For me, it's like always music first. Like what's going on with the time signatures and the key and the textures and the arranging and the guitar playing and all that sort of stuff.
You know, layering and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah, all the different layers.
You're a real technical guy.
I'm a technical guy, right? So like naturally, funny enough for me, like it's kind of a hot take, but not so much anymore. But when Fear Inoculum first came out, for me it was really underwhelming. You know, my first impression was like, oh,
I was so excited at drop.
We waited
I was like
15 years for this. Like, it's just like this really mundane and dumb and kind of dry. And it was one of those things where I don't know if it was like someone explicitly telling me like, give it repeat listens and you'll hear more things, or just hearing fans kind of gush about it that made me think maybe I should give it another chance. But it took like 4 or 5 listens. And by like the 4th or 5th time through, at some point it just kind of clicked and a light bulb turned on. Like, oh, I get it.
Yeah, like, yeah, you almost have to convince yourself that you like it. But then once that switch is flipped.
Yeah, once it flipped, I was like, oh, I totally had a blind eye to this whole thing. And like, oh my God, this is so good. And I remember just listening to it on my birthday while I was kind of chilling and jamming and like in my own little world. And I was like, I'm going to go through Fear Inoculum again because I had a friend who had the same experience. For the first time he listened to it, he was like, this is kind of lame. This kind of sucks. But then on the 2nd or 3rd repeat visit, he was like, oh, now I get it. I really like it. And I remember visiting with him and him being really excited, like, oh yeah, now I kind of let's sit down and listen to it together. And then we sat down and we listened to it and it was really cool. And like at that point I was like, I gotta chew up this entire band's discography. I gotta get into like all of it. And like I just like totally fell down that rabbit hole, and now they're one of my favorite bands of all time. And like hearing all their early stuff for the first time very recently was hugely eye-opening, because I really didn't know that was where they kind of came from. This like real dark, aggressive, angry, satirical, kind of Rage Against the Machine-esque kind of stuff where like you could really, and funny enough, I know the guitar player for Tool like lived with Tom Morello or something.
I was reading something about
there's some kind of direct connection that they like directly knew Rage Against the Machine, and like I could hear that influence in Tool's early music.
Oh yeah, and totally.
It's just so
absolutely
cool.
Rebellious and a big FU to the world.
Mm-hmm.
They were one of the bands when they first came out that were a little different than what was going on the radio, which was really nice for people who weren't like that were around my age and were not really enjoying a lot of the grunge bands after their first album, we'll say. Like when that stuff started to hit, 93 Undertow was out, like that. That gave a metal fan something to listen to, because at that point
there was nothing for
metal. The radio was being flooded with, I mean, you had grunge, you had hair bands, you had like Beastie Boys.
Well, the hair bands were gone. By 93.
By 93, I guess the hair bands were all gone by then.
They were gone, but the radio, the only thing you were getting on the radio was going to be not to say that they were bad, but it was just, you had just a handful of bands. You had Soundgarden, you had Nirvana was kind of on the way out. I think he may have even been dead by the time Undertow came out. I don't remember.
I think it was 93.
Alice in Chains. but Alice in Chains only put out a few albums, so it's not like there was a ton of good stuff
New
to
fresh
enjoy.
material.
And Tool came on. Tool was pretty fresh, and it was heavier, and it was more interesting.
Now, I wasn't around for the early days of Tool, though. Did they get a lot of exposure? Like, did they get a lot of plays on the radio with their older songs?
Sober did. I remember hearing Sober on like rock radio. Yeah.
Okay.
And Sober was like a big like when MTV,
I feel like Sober was their breakout song.
Yeah, that was
funny.
That was
probably Sober. There's like 5 or 6 other tracks that would never see radio play at all.
Oh, absolutely. But that eclipsed Sober by
exactly. I mean,
fathoms.
Funny enough, I hate to say it, but the song "Hooker with a Penis."
Oh, it's fantastic.
That song is fantastic.
It's
and
fantastic.
It's so artful and it's so complex and musically interesting. And
but you name a song "Hooker with a Penis," and it's like,
You're
okay, well, we're not going to put that on
the radio. Yeah.
Like, you're never going to get that exposure. But that's also kind of the thing. Wait, was it?
But it makes it so much
Hooker
more
with
interesting.
the penis, like shove your fucking finger up your ass.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what that whole song is about. It's like, I'm not a fucking sellout. Like you calling me a sellout makes me no more a sellout than what I actually am.
Yeah, and it's just I think the fact that they really kind of stand their ground on that creative front is what gives them such a strong cult following that they have for the fans that really dig their stuff. Like, I totally get these guys because like Maynard's just gonna go and do his own thing
and said, "I don't give a fuck."
Which is the most rock and roll thing you could say.
People fucking love it. People love it.
Yeah. And that's just awesome. It's such a powerful message, and I adore that so much. And for a guy that doesn't get hung up on like the content of the lyrics and the messages, the fact that still kind of pops out and sticks to me is saying something.
Yeah.
So much more.
Their changes, the way the band changed from, like we were saying, kind of more like alt rock, angsty, kind of aggressive, to what they are now, which is like a progressive, like masterpiece of a band. That was organic. That wasn't like that was
natural transformation.
Trend, yeah, right.
That was experience. That was life experience. That was getting older. That was learning. That was life on tour, and that, like, everything, you could feel it as the albums go on, mellowing and more acceptance and peace with themselves and peace with the world.
Probably seeking to stimulate yourselves musically too. You look at some of the metric complexity of some of their later stuff, like on 10,000 Days in Fear Inoculum, or you can hear like the different layers. Yeah,
I love 10,000
Days is such a good album.
I think right now that's my favorite Tool album. It's so emotional, dude. It's so powerful. I can't.
Yeah, and I heard it for the first time like 2 weeks ago, and I was like, "Oh, what have I been missing this whole time?" I mean, I heard the part naturally, like forever.
Well,
I had like a voice student that came in, like, "I want to sing this cool Tool song." It's like, all right, cool, whatever. Who are you to wave your? And like, but then hearing the rest of the album and how like the whole thing is like that.
Yeah,
it's like, oh my God.
Also a great satirical song.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, also some great, lyrical banter, I guess you could call it, just nonsense, but with a hard-hitting message.
Yeah.
Now, Brian's probably thinking, I really wish I could go back and hear that for the first time again, just to have that feeling. When an album blows you away like
and
that,
be 10 years older, and be like, can you imagine, Brian, like being like in high school when Undertow
experience
came out?
Oh my goodness!
Like Jesus, because we were still in diapers.
There's
no way we ever would have heard that shit.
Just feel a little old.
Oh, I always feel old. It's fine. I graduated in 91, so I was already in college when that happened. I was doing the college radio when Undertow showed up, and I'm like, oh, this isn't too bad, compared to what I had to play, because we had to play alternative music on our alternative rock station or alternative radio station, and it hurts. Like I said, there was a handful of good bands back then, but there wasn't a lot to pick from, and we couldn't play metal. And then when Tool came out, I was like, okay, I could get into this.
You can do something different.
Well, here's a question for you guys. If you wanted to get somebody into Tool, somebody you were like, okay, you need to hear this band. What song would you give them first to listen to? What would be the gateway to Tool?
I have a list.
Oh, Brian has a list. Oh,
I have a list.
Let's explore the list.
My personal favorites. So, for me, you've got to start off, like I said, essential Tool. Start off with Lateralis.
Okay.
That's kind of how you gauge whether they like the psychedelia and whatnot. But Lateralis is obviously my first, and then followed by Rosetta Stoned, actually. I have
Ooh, that's a good
Rosetta
one.
Stoned. That song blew me away. The lyrics really messed me up. I still don't know all of them. I can't sing along. It's one of the few that I don't know just because it's so everywhere. But when I broke it down and really listened to it, it was just mind-numbingly awesome. So for me, Rosetta Stone is a big one. And then Undertow, I think. Those are my top three if
Okay.
I were to introduce someone. But also Rosetta Stone is it's kind of in there because I also really like Stinkfist, and that kind of shows their harder side.
Yeah,
It's
I
like
like
harder.
Stinkfist a lot.
Yeah, Stinkfist is a great one because it shows their harder rock, but still an emotional song.
Yeah, so it kind
So
of depends on your listener too. Like if you have a friend and you know they have like heavier tastes, you're gonna suggest different pieces
oh, if I have a friend that
than
likes
if you have
heavier
a friend
stuff,
who's more
I'm
like
showing them jerk off.
contemplative.
Yo, that's a great song.
Yeah, no, it is.
Yeah, it's
And
like-
it's kind of funny, the list you compiled, because like for me, it would be totally the opposite of that. Where like I wouldn't use as much as I love Lateralis, and I think it's an absolute masterpiece. If I had someone who's like, I've never heard of Tool, get me sold on them.
You
get
think
me
that's
hooked,
too much for them?
I think it would be too much for like a first impression. Like, let's get them to the point where they're interested in it, and then hit them with Lateralis, and then that'll kind of get them to the point where like, oh, this band is amazing. This is
Sure.
one of my new favorite bands. So like, I wouldn't hit them with something like that first.
What do you
Unless
think?
you're sitting around drinking and you want to show them the video and blow everyone's mind.
And
with
then show them the
video.
YouTube video, the guy that
that's-
breaks down
The Nazi
sequence
sequence.
thing. Yeah,
That's
like,
what I did.
and then listen to the song, and then it's like, oh my god, these guys are geniuses. But like for me, like I know this sounds like I'm probably not like a legit Tool fan, but for me, I would go to Schism and the Pot.
Definitely the pot.
Because
I stand
musically they're the
corrected.
most diverse, and they hook you, and they're interesting, and they're fast paced, and they're fun, and they offer a lot of content, I think, for any facet of being a
Fun.
musician, whether it's like a cool fun kind of riff, or it's like a fun kind of drum beat, or it's cool lyrics, or it's just a generally kind of cool vibe that's pretty laid back and meditative, but not too kind of drawn out, where you have like a lot of the kind of atmospheric kind of stuff where it can get kind of boring for a non-fan. So like for me, those are like the first two that come to mind. For me, like Schism, like I could see, I want to like write
Yeah,
a
you seem
paper.
to really like that. Yeah.
How much Schism is just an absolute masterpiece, lyrically and musically, and like how much they play with that asymmetrical riff and how they fit it into 12 beats, and how it's like, and how that fits in 12. And I'm hearing that kind of references to that in later songs, later on, and it's like, oh yeah,
They do a lot of that. They do a lot of like foreshadowing with their music.
Yeah.
That whole like 5 and 7 thing, and how it perfectly fits in 12 time, which like 12 is like musically one of the most perfect numbers ever, because it's like 4
It's so-
distributions of 3, and like I could sit here and go on into the math forever and like break it down, but that would not be fun to listen to, so I'm
Yeah,
not
that's not
going
what
to do
this
that.
show's about.
I'll save the interest in that. But like it's funny because I hear those same patterns like from the Schism riff kind of pop up in other later Tool songs. And,
Oh yeah, and I feel
You know what I
feel
mean?
Like I feel like that sound is kind of like a Danny Carey go-to, like that
Yeah,
choppy
which is just
breathe
absolutely
sound
his
is
absolute
just
mastery over meter,
Yeah,
and how to
yeah.
manipulate meter, and how to create polymeter, and like his
yeah.
meter,
He
Oh,
dances
it's just
with
awesome.
it. He's brilliant.
yeah, it's nuts.
How do you feel
it's
about?
that tribal sound that he like you said he has a mastery over, which just adds to the Tool sound. Like you
Yeah.
couldn't have a different drummer playing.
No,
Like he is. I can't, and there's drummers that can do it. Okay, let's say
yeah, no. As much as I love Mike Portnoy, and he's an
Mike
amazing,
Portnoy.
cool polymeter drummer, progressive rock god, awesome writer,
There's-
composer, really cool. I would
Like
not
that.
put him in Tool. Would not do it.
That's the thing. Like no one writes like that. Like Danny Carey writes this stuff that is so, like I said, the only word we could use is tribal. Like it has
Yeah.
this tribal element that adds to the whole kind of feel of Tool, which is different than anything else. I know there's bands that sound kind of like Tool, or like
No, there isn't.
Yeah,
Yes,
there are
yes,
bands that
there
like
is.
try
There's
to
no.
emulate.
What I'm saying is they sound like Tool. Breaking Ben. Come on.
I
But
wouldn't
it's a
say they sound like Tool.
straightforward. It's a straightforward version of Tool. That's what I'm trying to say. There's bands that have that try to get that vibe, but they can't do it. Okay, that's what I'm saying. Just like there's a bunch of bands that sound like Guns N' Roses.
But there's
only
I would
one
argue
Guns N'
that there's not any band that sounds like Guns N' Roses either.
There's tons of bands that sound like Guns N' Roses. There's tons of
don't
bands
really
that sound
get
like
it,
Iron
though.
Maiden.
They don't get the same. They don't get.
Well,
the
no,
same
they don't get it. No, they don't get it at all. That's what I'm saying. Like, there's bands that sound like these bands, but they don't. They don't get it. Like how many bands sound like Iron Maiden?
Yeah,
but they don't sound like Iron Maiden. You know what I mean? Like same thing with Tool. There's this whole like if you just take like the main things that like normal listeners other than musicians hear of Tool, okay? It's like butt rock almost, you know. It's like Seether. It's like those late.
I've never heard Tool compared to Seether.
I've never heard Tool compared to Seether either.
But like when
that's a pretty good point.
You take just those little bits that like normal listeners hear. You know what I mean? Yeah. But you can't. There's only one band that sounds like Tool, or that is Tool. All these other bands like that try, they just failed miserably. That's all I'm saying. You know. Yeah. I'm sorry if I offended anybody.
Oh no.
I'm sorry I offended.
That is funny though. But like, yeah, no, it's funny because you can easily compare Seether to Tool, but there's no way in hell you could ever compare Seether to Tool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You can do it, but you can't sell it almost.
On the surface, you can, but when you like really pick apart musically what's going on and how the songs are structured and how they're written.
Yeah, when Seether is plucking the same 4 chords, and
it's because it's a really simple band, and when Tool's doing it, it's because there's a certain reason why they choose the letters they do and the numbers they do, and there's a certain formula for how it all fits. And when you crack that code and you cut open that onion, you really smell it. You know.
You know what? I gotta look up Seether. I don't even know who they are.
Oh my goodness!
I would venture. I'm no Seether fan, and if there's any Seether fans who are following and watch and disagree with this, please let us know and enlighten us.
And I
would say that there's no Seether stuff out there that's like remotely close to the kind of depth and complexity that's the Tool song.
To you, that's what I'm saying. Like a lot of people will lump bands like that in together, and they shouldn't. That's why there only could be.
No, and I agree. I think people do that. Actually, you know how the whole When We Were Younger tour thing was just going
yeah. That whole thing that's come out.
I saw one that was directed towards
like alternative rock kids.
Yeah, it was towards like dads now, and it was Seether, and it was literally a whole bunch of those bands, and Tool was at the bottom.
Oh, at the bottom?
All the way at the bottom. And I was like, first off, Tool should be headlining this. And second off, they would never disgrace themselves by going on tour with, my God, who else was on there? Hinder, Shinedown, stuff like that.
The Fray, like shit like that.
Yeah. The Fray.
No, not the Fray.
Jesus God almighty.
God, I'm flashing back to 2003 watching VH1 videos.
The Fray. I thought I was bad for saying Seether.
Yeah.
I'll have to find that graphic.
Like on the surface, Tool can be like this, just like, they're just like this weird like alternative thing, and they're kind of psychedelic or something. But like to like serious fans, it's like, oh no, here's like this 20-minute long video that like breaks down like all the mathematical like thought and effort that goes into writing the lyrical lines of a song like Lateralis.
Have you guys watched the video that breaks down 46 and 2 from like a Jungian perspective, like Carl Jung? I don't know how to see it, like psychology and whatnot.
I think it's Jung. I think it's Jungian. I think.
Oh, I thought it was Jung.
I could be wrong.
Oh, whatever it is. I watched Frasier.
But I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. Nevertheless, it has this whole description about how like your chromosomal layout can give you powers or something. I forget what it was. I read it a long time ago, and I wrote down the entire thing because it's basically a PowerPoint video over the song. But 46 and 2, I forgot about that song. That's probably one that I would show someone to introduce them, because
that's another good one.
Heavy, great riff, cool lyrics, like definitely quintessential.
So Brian, let me ask you, if you had to if you had to break down your favorite Tool album, which one is it? If you had to pick
Okay.
just one.
Okay, so
Not which one's the best. Which one's your personal favorite?
my personal favorite. I really like Opiate. But I also really like 10,000 Days. I'm stuck between those two. Opiate because it's raw and it's, like we said, it's visceral, it's angry. He's yelling, and I like the fact that he has like little secret track. He has a secret track at the end of, I think at the end of the track, Opiate, or is it Bottom? Nevertheless, it's actually Bottom was on Undertow. Nevertheless, I don't know what I'm talking about apparently. But what was the question?
Neither do we. Just what's your favorite album? You know, a couple. You know, what are your favorite songs? You know, just kind of gush all about it.
If I had to say favorite album, I'm gonna go out on a limb, and I'm gonna stick with it because I had this discussion with my friend Nick, and he chastised me for it. But 10,000 Days.
Okay.
Wings for Marie and 10,000 Days are bar none the most beautiful thing that Tool has ever come out with, in my opinion. I think that, from my understanding, it's like a tribute to his mother.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And I think it's a beautiful, beautiful tribute. I think the fact that they meld together so perfectly is really, really cool. Some guy was arguing with me on Reddit a few months ago, saying that they had nothing to do with each other. I was like, the fact that one song literally fades into the next song has nothing to do with it.
Aren't they labeled as part 1 and part 2 of one master?
Well, that's what I said, right? Too. I was like, if you, so he
apparently
he's talking out his ass. He doesn't know what he's talking
he was
about.
like, he doesn't Tool enough. So but nevertheless, The Pod is on there, which, as we discussed, is a great rock song. It's
really cool.
Yeah, it shows off a great vocal range. I mean, Maynard can hit some seriously great
notes. Rhythmic complexity. There's a lot of complexity in the riff. Yeah.
Especially that opening riff is just dirt nasty. Mm-hmm. It really is. It's just so cool. And I tried playing it, can't quite figure it out. I don't have the fingers for it, I guess. But
it's tough. It's not easy.
I think 10,000 Days also because it's the last one I discovered, and I waited 13 years with it. And it was like, that was the latest thing that Maynard had come up with, other than A Perfect Circle and Pussifer, which, just thrown out there, I'm not a huge fan of either of them. For me, if it's a Maynard project, it's got to be Tool.
Yeah. Well, Perfect Circle has some decent stuff, but
no, they're definitely talented.
Yeah. But not, I totally agree with that, except for, I really like So Long and Thanks for All the Fish. I love that song by Perfect Circle.
I don't know if I've heard that one.
It's off their latest album. It's so different than everything else. But
you'll have to share it on the Facebook page.
Yeah, it's a great song.
I was going to say, share it for me.
It's a fantastic song, and it's a little different. But as far as, like, because I don't know the entire catalog by Tool, like, back and front. So, but my picks would have to be Anima or Lateralis. That's one or two. Either or. That would be my favorite two songs by them.
It's fair enough.
No, and they're both. I mean, in my opinion, there's no bad album. Like, there's no last place. It's all
they're all
rotating
in their own way.
There is no first and last. It's depending on the mood, and there kind of is a mood for everything too. Like, if you're in a bad mood, you can listen to some of the earlier stuff. If you're in a really reflective kind
some of the middle stuff, or some of the
middle stuff and later. So I feel like there's a lot of diversity for people.
They also don't have a huge catalog, so, like, everything.
Yeah.
They have 5 full-length albums. And
over the span of what, 20 plus years?
Yeah,
so
it's not a lot
now. Which is good. In a way, it's good because, like, there's only so many great ideas anyone could have. I believe. Some people have a lot more great ideas than other people. These guys had 5 excellent. You're right. There isn't a bad album. Like, there's not one album by Tool that you're like,
But they're all very different depending on your tastes. Like, if you really like some of the more reflective stuff, you're probably not gonna like Undertow as much.
Yeah.
If you like more of, like, the kind of, like, gritty sort of hard rock kind of stuff, you're gonna like the earlier things, and maybe you're gonna get kind of bored by some of the middle things on Lateralis and 10,000 Days.
Yeah, because I know some people, like, I met a guy at the laundromat a couple of years ago. We were talking about Tool because he had artwork that I had never seen from Tool, and it was the faces. I think it was 10,000 Days artwork, but I asked him about it. I was like, "Is that Tool?" And he said, "Yeah." We started talking about it, and he hated it, and he hated all of the later stuff. He only liked which I thought was weird because he was wearing a later album shirt,
Yeah.
but he didn't like the reflective stuff. He liked the angry stuff, and he had the same opinion. I don't know if you guys like a band called Opeth. I think
Yeah.
Jeff, we had talked about Opeth, and they're a death metal band, but he had the same opinion about that. So some people, you know, like they really do just like they have a great thrashy, like thrashy alternative sound.
Yeah, thrashy is a pretty good term,
Yeah.
I would say,
Yeah.
for earlier things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
So yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely almost niche music in that
Oh,
sense.
sure.
Like,
Yeah. Opeth is a band that has really changed over the course of 20 years, I guess.
that's why I brought them up,
probably,
because
yeah.
I think their first
Yeah.
album was 93 or 94.
Yeah. They've been around for a long time. I didn't like them at first. I didn't like their earlier album at all.
It was all black metal, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
It's not my taste.
Now-
once they went
It's a
to the
very
death
strongly
metal,
acquired taste. You have to like really be into that shit.
Yeah. Now it's like it's like prog metal master. I have to listen to more of it. I have to listen to more Opeth because, and you should too, Denton, because I think you really enjoy it.
I'll post some on
Give
the
it to me
page.
as homework. I'll do it.
Still Life, and Ghost Reveries, two fantastic concept
Ghost
albums.
Reveries, that's the one.
Dude, absolutely phenomenal. Ghost Reveries is about like some dude, and he like wishes his mother was dead. He makes a deal with the devil, and then things start going wrong, and he tries to back out of the deal. Really cool album. I think that's kind of what I got out of it. I looked up a little bit on the internet, and then Still Life is a really great one. It's about this guy. It's like medieval times. He's a heretic, doesn't believe in the church or God. The church finds out, beats the hell out of him, kicks him out.
Mm-hmm.
He's gone for like 15 years healing, plotting his revenge, comes back to get his wife. She's a nun who joined because otherwise they were going to like kill her. And they kill her because he comes back, and then he wreaks havoc. It's a fantastic album.
Sounds like a cool story.
It is so cool.
Yeah.
But that's the reason why I actually brought Opeth up, is because their metamorphosis from early to now is just
It's like two different bands.
mind-blowing. It really is. Like, you have this death metal, and they have like lyrically they still have really great content, but the voice was just like that growly sound, which I don't really like. I like the demonic, like the deep. I like the deep, scary stuff. So that's why I like a lot of the heavier like death metal side of it.
Is that the direction they took later on? They kind of went for like a heavier kind of
like around the 2000 mark. They went for
like
less
super
black metal.
guttural.
Yeah, like really, like not like pig squealing screamo stuff. It's very like heavy, intense, complicated riffs. Really
Denton, you'd really enjoy it. You would really enjoy them.
It's right up your alley.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I like anything.
Yeah.
I'll send you some albums. Don't you
Okay.
worry.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Those Reveries is probably the one I'd say is the one I enjoyed the most, and I got to spend more time with that. You know,
It slaps.
And, getting back to the whole Tool thing, I gotta listen to the new one again.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those where like you have to listen to it like 3 or 4 times before you really get
Before
it.
you get into it, yeah.
And then when you do, it like totally just blows you out of the water.
A point I wanted to make about albums like that, the progressive albums. A lot of times the progressive albums, like you even said this yourself about the new Dream Theater album, it took you a couple times to really enjoy it. At first you're like, and then
I still can't get into it personally.
I can respect that. There's definitely like some of the tracks are like totally awesome. The title track is great. Sleeping Giants is great.
Yeah.
But there's still like the whole like alien thing. I'm like, I don't really get it. You know.
That's how I felt about the newest Tool album. When I heard it, I liked it, but it didn't sit with me like the rest of them did. And it's just a matter of getting used to, you know, the complexities of that album, I think. And that's how it is with a lot of prog metal. For me, you know, like the first time it's like
you gotta listen to it 4 or 5 times, and then when you finally you get it, it just changes your life. It
just bang, it clicks. Sometimes it's just so much at you, especially for someone who also like me, who just likes groove-oriented metal too. Like I like stoner rock, which is sometimes the same riff for 7 minutes. You know?
Yeah, it's just dude. It's a drone tone. I like stoner rock. I like the garage and the doom metal and stuff. I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
Doom is.
I'm a huge fan of Doom.
And I think that's a big
Doom
thing with Tool, is because they have a lot of that droney,
that
deep just consistency. I like the consistency of it in a way.
Yeah, but it's kind of more like a kind of zen, like meditative, like here's like this like recurring like 3-note, 4-note pattern over 3 or 4 beats. And like, you know, for like all the music kind of geeks, like all like the theory guys, it's like, oh, I can kind of hear like all this polymeter going on. I can hear all these layers of rhythm that are happening. And
Once they break it down, but if
and
if
every
you're just
time I listen
listening
to it, I
at
start
face
hearing different
value,
things every time I listen to it, you know.
But at face value, it's just nothing.
just-
like you were
it's
saying
just
before.
one
It sounds
note.
like, and that's
Right,
how it gets grouped in with like Seether and stuff like that.
Right, exactly, which is
'cause it's
funny
looked at
because
as
it's
simple.
really a crying shame when you start to do that because like then you group it in based on surface level similarities.
Yeah.
But when you really dig into the
But you know
musical
what, though?
content, it's nowhere
The people
close
that
at all.
the people that group it in with bands like that, they haven't visited Rock Talk with DocRocker's Facebook group because you know
Obviously. They're not frequenters.
They haven't
They
heard our
frequent the-
illustrious, intelligent conversations about metal and rock and all of those things.
and Photoshop
Everything
the
else
Ronnie
they're in.
James Dio.
Yeah, exactly.
Rest in peace, RJD.
National Geographic, you know, that was the latest one.
Yeah.
Oh, God. All right, wrap it up for me, guys. It's about 8:00. It's time to go.
Real quick.
Pizza and wings. Pizza and wings are waiting for me and a beer because I didn't bring a beer with me.
You didn't bring a beer with you?
Water. I didn't. I forgot. And then
We
there
were
was
supposed
Always
to bring
bring
a
a beer
beer?
with you. I finally brought a beer. Yeah.
I didn't get the memo.
I'm sorry, Brad. I should have told you. Like we usually bring
What are
a
you drinking
beer.
there?
Maybe if you have
I'm
me on
doing
again, I'll bring a beer.
Dogfish Head. 60-minute.
Ooh,
Ooh,
so
I'll go
nice.
grab
I got
one real
90
quick.
minutes. I got 90 minutes in the fridge.
It's
But
so
yeah,
good.
I brought water with me because I was like, need
Well,
some
I did water too because I didn't want to be all dried out. But there we go.
Yeah.
Brian's got
All
something.
right.
What do you got there,
a,
dude?
my grandpa gave me a little variety pack. Ithaca Beer Company. This is blackberry sour.
Oh, you like sour beers?
No, I don't actually. I hate them. I hate them. I really like heavy beers. I like Box. I like stouts.
Like Guinness and stuff like that.
I love Guinness is my jam. I
Oh,
like
okay. See, I'm
lagers.
the
I like
opposite. I'm a
red
light
ales.
guy.
Oh yeah, I don't
Well,
do the light.
we only talk about stouts on the new TV show. On the new episode, it's all about stouts. The dead of
Ooh.
winter beers, we call it. How about that? A little cross promotion for my television.
Yeah, there we go.
There you go. Winehouse and Road Stops. Check it out, guys.
Well, okay, let's wrap it up. Okay, if I can't even say like describe Tool or describe your feelings of Tool because it's undescribable because it's Tool and there's so many different elements. Like we just scratched the surface on. We didn't even really talk about the other projects they have. We barely talked about Maynard also making wine and being a really weird
goodness.
dude.
This is like
We could do a whole
five-part
episode on Maynard,
I was gonna
probably.
say. And Adam Jones. I mean, the guitarist Adam
Yeah.
Jones. He's super talented. He did a lot of work on their videos. He worked in Jurassic Park, Edward Scissorhands, which I just want to throw out there. It's Edward Scissorfingers. Just it's not Edward Scissorhands.
That's true.
The title
Yeah,
is
it's true.
misleading.
It's
sure.
misleading. It's a misnomer by no doubt. But yeah.
Oh Christ. Like or the fact that like when they're live in concert, sometimes Maynard is in the back. You know,
Yeah,
behind
not
a
even
sheet.
looking at the audience. He's just singing to the
Doing
floor.
whatever. Did
Yeah.
you see the video where he tackles that guy and chokes him out on stage? Because
No, I didn't see that, but I heard about it.
It's from the younger years. I think it might be the
I do-
Animator, actually.
I'll share this story. A friend of mine, I used to jam with, Jason Barron, excellent guitar player, loved Tool. He finally got to see them, and this is going back 20 years. 20 years ago, he finally got to see them, and he's like, Maynard didn't even come out. He stood back by the drummer, okay, and he only saw his shadow. Like they shot light from behind, so he just saw his shadow on a big sheet, and he just did his Maynard dance, and he just stood there the entire time. The entire concert didn't come out, just sang from behind the drum.
Oh, I would be so upset. I'd be so
I don't know if he
upset.
liked
I would
in a way,
totally
I'm like,
respect
that's
it.
cool.
Yeah.
In a way, that's cool.
Let him
He doesn't
express
do it all
himself in
the
his
time.
own unique way and like convey something.
Yeah, but like I'm
to the
paying.
audience.
I'm wondering how much the tickets were for that show. Like at one point in time, because if I'm paying $200 now to see Tool, I want to
No.
see Tool.
This
I want
was-
to see
Yeah,
them.
I wouldn't want to see them. I would go if I just hear them. I'd be happy.
I want to meet
This was,
Maynard.
I
I want
think-
to pull his.
I-
I want to talk to him.
Yeah, pick
I
his
want to
brain a
say
little
this
bit,
was
yeah.
probably whatever album was out after Undertow. The one after Undertow, I think, is the tour.
Anima. I want to say.
Yeah,
As far
Okay,
as like
yeah,
official studio album.
Around there.
Yeah, that was the next one.
It was a long time ago. So yeah, over 20 years. Oof, God, oh boy, am I old.
You're old.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
let's see. Undertow was 93, Animo was 96. Holy smokes. Dude, I
It
was
was
4 years
probably
old when
around-
that
It's
shit
almost
dropped.
30 years ago.
Wow.
I would say it was probably around like 90 after 96, probably closer to 98 or so. But yeah.
Yeah.
Just real quick though, a question for both of you. Jeff, I'm assuming you have heard No Quarter by Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Have you guys heard there's a Tool cover of it?
Yes. I have heard it's really cool because
I've
it's so
not heard
good.
that. I'd be interested to hear
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, look up
Totally.
the Tool cover of No Quarter by Zeppelin. And
Okay.
dude, I honestly, I mean, I've always loved the song by Zepp, but I think Tool takes it to another level.
Yeah.
I really do. I think they just blast it.
No, that's old though. They've been doing that for a very long time, I think. I remember hearing that long time ago. I heard a shitty live version of it. Did they do like a real re-recording of it or no?
I haven't come across anything. They do a lot of things like only once. There's a lyrical pattern that's in, I think it's in Undertow or maybe it's in Bottom, but they only said it one time live in Australia. And that was the only time it was ever performed. But if you read I think it's on the Undertow album. If you read the pig on the artwork, it has the line and it's, I'll make weapons from my imperfections. And I think it's a brilliant line. And I think it definitely deserves to be on an album, but they only performed it apparently one time in Australia. And it was just like this little hidden gem that I found and it always stuck with me. I think it's a beautiful line. And
well, that's the beauty of a band like this. Like, again, they don't give a fuck.
Yeah. It's like, oh, we did it. Like we
That's the
performed
beauty
it.
of it. We're just
You know,
going to do
it's-
our thing and people will follow. And
They
if
do it for
don't,
us, not for them.
fuck it.
And, well, they do it for them, not for us, I guess. In
Yeah.
their eyes, it's for
I
us,
always
not
have
for
mad
them.
respect for artists that do that kind of thing.
Yeah, you got to have, you know, your own limitations and your own little your own spin on things.
Mhm.
And I think that's where a lot of, like, obviously the 80s and 90s got like really washed out with the commercialism of it, and artists lost a lot of their unique flair. And I think that's a lot of what killed music, and we're still dealing with the consequences from the commercialism.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think
sure.
I think it's an
Absolutely.
absolute shame. I listened to music today and it's just like, this had a team of people writing it. And it's just lyrical nonsense. Like the beat might be good, but that's all it really is. And it's a
and even
crying
that's
shame.
debatable. to
We
an
need
extent,
more
depending on the song.
talented, ingenuitive, thought-provoking musicians. And
Yeah,
I mean,
but
even
that
hip
stuff
hop.
doesn't sell. That's the problem.
No,
That stuff
but-
doesn't sell.
But you know what? Lyrics sell in hip hop. And I know that you're not too big into the lyrics, Danton, but for people that are, like, that's why hip hop is so big, because people relate to it. But the music thing, like, it is a dying, not art, because there are many talented musicians, but you get like these Tosin Abasi type players that are playing this music and it's super complicated, but you can't follow it. And it's just complicated for the sake of complication. Sorry, I'm just rambling now. I don't even remember.
Okay.
I don't even remember what I started with. But
Well, you made your point. Tool's awesome. Go listen to them. How's that?
no,
yeah, that
you
works for
it's
me.
a long story short. Long story short.
All right. Okay.
Thank you so much for having me,
Danton,
guys.
Yeah, no,
Absolutely. Anytime you want to come on, man.
we would love
all
to
the
have you
time.
back.
Come on.
We'll do another one. It'll be fun.
Yeah, we could talk about any kind of metal and rock music you want.
You know
Danton,
what we could do?
tell the people that are watching this where to go and what to do.
Well, for starters, listen to Tool. Go on Spotify, because fortunately nowadays you can actually find their stuff on Spotify. I know that was a whole big thing.
Oh,
with
really?
licensing and stuff. They had nothing on Spotify until, I want to say, until Fear Inoculum came out. You couldn't even find Tool on Spotify. But now
Well,
everything's
yeah,
on
I
there.
know, because that's why I stopped
All their
using
albums,
Spotify.
everything's on there. You can just listen to whatever you want. So check out their early stuff, check out their most recent stuff, and just give it a whirl for yourself and see what you think of it. And if you don't love it, try it
Go
again.
fuck yourself.
No, try it again.
Okay,
because
maybe not,
That
but
was how I felt listening
No,
to the
you're right,
newest
you're right.
album. Like the first couple times, I'm like,
Sorry,
it's a little
guys.
overrated. It's a little overhyped. And then I listen to it again and again and again. And then, the fourth or fifth time, it really clicked for me and it turned into something that I really, really enjoy. And I listen to all the time now. So, that's my 2 cents.
That's how brainwashing works.
Just go listen to them.
Yeah. Listen and enjoy.
Yeah, Brian.
And make sure
What are some of your last thoughts?
Oh, well, first off, I'd like to thank you guys for having me once again.
Please.
Any last thoughts on Tool? God, there's so many. If I just start rambling again, so I'll just end it there. This. I had a brilliant time. This was
all the
wonderful.
reason to bring you back and do another one.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll do something else, man. Definitely, you're welcome on.
I was gonna say maybe Dream Troll.
Oh my God, that's right, Dream Troll. That was
Troll.
pretty cool.
Dude, they slap, don't they?
Oh yeah. That's you were talking. I'm not gonna get off on a tangent, but real quick, you were talking about the commercialization of music and how it's all kind of sucky and this and that. But the one thing that the internet did was level the playing field for everybody. So if you're into something real weird like Dream Troll, you can find them or something like it on the internet.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm going to encourage everybody right now, Rock Talk with DocRocker Facebook group, join it. And of course,
check out
ring
our
the bell.
stuff. Yeah.
And ring the bell and subscribe to us on YouTube. I'm out of here. I got pizza, beer, and wings waiting for me. So peace out, guys.
Sounds good.
Have a good one, guys.
Yeah. Peace.